Hey guys, Chad here with the Reptile Rangers. Now we're at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center today, and we are going to talk about IBD in boas. But before we get into that, right here in this corner is our subscriber button. Make sure you hit that, and we appreciate you doing so. And if you already have, we appreciate you following along week after week after week. Now, this right here, IBD, is called inclusion body disease. This is something that we've been dealing with for years and years and years. It was first recognized back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, as being a fatal viral disease, completely transmittable. There's no real known reason as to why and how it originally creates, but we know that it is very contagious between boa constrictors or boids. Okay, now there are other species that can harbor it as well. Ball pythons, Burmese pythons were known to have it back in the, especially back in the late 70s. They were the ones known to have it a little bit more prominent, and the boas somehow started picking it up a little bit more prominently in the 1980s. Now, there is absolutely no known treatment for this disease. One of the things that we talk about a lot of the times is, especially in the case of breeding colonies or when folks are breeding boa constrictors, it's always good to have that quarantine period, that quarantine time, because IBD can be very, very expensive to do tests to find out if an animal or the boa has IBD with it still alive. And then, of course, by the time that you already have the snake showing the actual signs of IBD, if it's been introduced to anything else, then it can be transmitted to those other species as well, or those other specimens. Now, one of the ways in which knowing about IBD being prominent is in neurological issues, regurgitation issues. But also, however, you can also have regurgitation come from intestinal parasites. You can have regurgitation come from stress. You can have regurgitation come from feeding something that's a little bit too big for the animal, okay? So just by regurgitation alone and trying to diagnose IBD is a little ambiguous, okay? So it's kind of pointless. But when it comes to the signs of corkscrewing and barrel rolling, true straight neurological symptoms, that would be when the disease is quite progressed along, and when it's actually getting to the point of where it's going to be to the fatal point, okay? Now, in the event that you do have an animal, in case of the boids, with inclusion body disease, the only real thing that you can do is euthanasia, okay? To euthanize the animal. And, you know, it's unfortunate in some folks' case, but when you know for a fact that it has IBD, you cannot breed them, you cannot put them with other animals because they can spread the disease to other specimens, and at the same time, you can also you can cause these things to get to where they're having a lot of those really, really bad symptoms, and not really living what we call a quality of life. Now, from head tremors and neurological symptoms and corkscrewing and barrel rolling, again, doesn't always have to be IBD. We have seen cases where somebody made it too hot, made the pen too hot, and it does what's called cooking the brain. That'll cause neurological symptoms, okay? So just from visual diagnostics alone is not really a great way to know for sure whether your snake has IBD or not, unless you've had the snake for an extended period of time. You know, they haven't been overheated. All of a sudden they start doing all this body twisting, this body contortioning kind of thing that they've never done before, twisting up and spinning backwards and doing what they call stargazing. Then it might be a good chance that the animal has IBD. But there's absolutely nothing that you can do for it. There's no treatment for it. The only thing that you can do is preparing and quarantining your animals, and then if you find that one is showing signs of it, then it doesn't get introduced into the rest of the collection, because you do not want that spreading, of which it can do. Now, I know this is kind of short, kind of sweet. There's not a lot to say about IBD, but it is a factor and it is around, okay? Hasn't been around quite as much the last couple of years. We haven't seen as many cases of it back in the late 2000s, early 20-teens. We were seeing quite a few cases of it, but it's kind of went back in on a lull again here over the last couple of years, at least in our area. So we haven't been seeing it quite as much here recently, but it's something, if you're into boa constrictors, it's something to definitely be aware of, okay? Now, again, this is inclusion body disease, or IBD for short. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, make sure to hit the bell for notifications, and we appreciate you following along week after week after week. Our information will be in the description below. A lot of people are getting in touch with us. Write us in. Let us know other things you want us to film about, any medical questions you have, whatever. Now, again, this is Chad. We are the Reptile Rangers here at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. We appreciate you following along. We'll either see you here at the zoo or we'll see you on the next episode. Later.